Welcome back, everyone. We've got a great guest for you today. It is Pete Korner, who one of the most prolific odds makers in Las Vegas for many, many years, setting the initial betting lines on sports for, at one point, virtually every casino on the Strip. So we're going to get the inside story as to how these odds makers set those lines, and perhaps you can get an edge in figuring out how to beat those lines. Pete, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, James. I appreciate it.
So did I overstate that at all, that you were setting the lines for every Vegas casino?
Yeah, the company I actually started with the infamous Michael Roxy Roxborough back in 1987, and worked for his company, Las Vegas Sports Consultants, for 17 years. I worked there as operations manager and senior odds maker, a full team of excellent odds makers. And then I decided to branch out on my own, and I received a license from the Nevada Gaming Control Board to do business with the casinos, and basically started the company and flushed out Las Vegas Sports Consultants. After a few years, we had pretty much a monopoly on things for about 15 more years after that. And then, of course, the industry has changed in the past 5 years, and it's exploded onto the scene across the United States.
So, yeah, we've got a myriad of listeners to the show of various levels of sports betting knowledge, but we'll just kind of start with some of the basics here and assume that people aren't familiar with exactly how that works. And this is the first time I've ever spoken directly to an odds maker, so I'm excited to make sure that I understand this properly. But it's my understanding that what an odds maker does is when a casino is going to offer betting on a particular game, you got to put a line up there. You got to put Lakers -6, Celtics +4, etc., so that the bettors can take either side of that, because obviously one team is favored, and somebody's got to set that initial line in hopes that half of the bettors are going to take one side and half are going to take the other side, right?
Right, exactly. Two-way action is what we're looking for. The interesting thing is, what you should know, what everybody should know as far as what a point spread is, it's merely a perception. It's not rocket science to setting the odds. It's really not that difficult, but it's more of a perception of where that watermark is, where we can get two-way action. It's not a clear sign of who's favored. It's not a clear sign who's going to win. It's strictly a financial water level mark that we can get that two-way action. Once the game starts, if there's two-way action, we don't care who wins. And you oftentimes get the pundits on sports TV saying, wow, a 20-point favorite lost the game and it was remarkable. The point spread really isn't, it is a factor in a sense that we are looking at data, teams that are absolutely doing really well compared to teams that are not doing well will naturally form a point spread in the area, in the ballpark where we think we can get the two-way action. The object of a line is to move. When we see there's money on a certain side, the line has to be moved by the bookmaker. And if the bookmaker does it correctly, they can get two-way action by manipulating the line up and down according to the play, according to their customers. And then when the game kicks off, hopefully, and it doesn't happen as often as you think. There's lots of two-way action, but there's always risk on a game. We're always rooting for some side, but hopefully it's not too much. As like in a championship game where we get a lot of action, there may be risk on one side. So it's life or death on that one particular day.
Yeah, in a perfect world, you've set a line where half the people bet one side, half to bet the other, and Vegas makes their money on the vig, the juice, the fact that you got to bet $110 to win 100, and that's how Vegas makes their money. Naturally,
James, that's how I made my money. That 11 to 10 was absolutely so important as the bottom line. It is so tough to beat in the long run. And that's what really saved my job, always having that edge of 11 to 10. In the long run, we know the sports books will carve out a profit on that mere 11 to 10 differential.
Right. But wouldn't you say you should be judged roughly speaking, on setting a line that ultimately does not need to be moved, that you set essentially kind of a perfect line. You set it at 6. You, in fact, got half on one side, half on the other. Good job, Mr. Oddsmaker, as opposed to you set it at 6 and everybody started betting the hell out of the Lakers -6. And all of a sudden the casino now has to move it to -7. They don't like that.
Right. That's absolutely right. And actually, the misconception is that we're setting the opening lines, we're hopefully setting the closing line. But we're hopefully that line doesn't move. It will move. We know it. But it depends on the limits of the participating sports book, how much they'll take, where they're at. Certain games, certainly with now with so many states in the sports wagering, they know that their home teams will get action, unlike those same teams won't get that same action in another state. So they have, when they see a certain line come out in a general layout for the numbers, they may want to adjust that. They may want to hike up the home team a little bit to take a play away from the players and always be a little bit higher than or ahead of the line than the rest of the nation.
Mm-hmm. So you said you're setting a line basically based on public perception of that game, because again, it's all about understanding what you think the public perceives, so that they'll half will bet one way, half will bet the other, as opposed to what you might truly think should be the line based on your knowledge of these teams. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And a good example is, let's say, let's just target something. Let's say like NBA totals this year, out of sight. The scores are huge. Last night, I think Philadelphia beat Indiana 147-143 in regulation. We know when we're setting the totals for the NBA, I can see that. And I look at it two different ways. One, as a handicapper, I say, wow, they're going to go way over on this game. But I know where the money is. You really can't. I can't put an NBA total at 255. Let's put it that way. It'll automatically be bet down no matter what. Even if I think it's going to fly over, I have to segregate the two feelings of what my betting perception is and what the line making perception is. So we know we can't right now. We haven't set a line, an NBA total in the 250s, but certainly in the 240s when it comes to some of those high scoring NBA teams. So we are looking at it in all different ways. I have to look at it from the bettor's perspective. I have to take a look at how they're looking at it. I try to look at the information they're looking at so I can come up with a similar line that they think should be the number. If we match, then I've got them. I think the odds maker and bookmaker, 2 out of 3 times, I think we can win. If we have the line, it's two-way action, good. We cut it, we get the juice. If they bet it wrong, then we get the juice again. If they get it right, they win. So we're always looking at the information that the gamblers are looking at so we can be near their thoughts on each game.
What some people would refer to as the dumb public, that you have to keep in mind, roughly speaking, the dumb public, which is just kind of betting with emotion and betting trends and this and that, as opposed to people who are genuine sports experts. And so therefore, doesn't that create an opportunity for someone who is a real sports expert to see that, aha, that line is too high because they know that everybody loves Notre Dame or what have you, and I'm going to take advantage of that line being off because of the dumb public?
Well, let's not call them dumb public. We like to call them casual bettors, and the other side are the wise guys. When Nevada was the only state legally, the wise guys carried a lot of weight. Bookmakers on the strip all over Nevada knew who the big players were and waited for that money to come in to move the line if necessary. If a dentist from St. Louis came in and had $10,000, wanted to bet a hockey game or something, the bookmakers wouldn't move the line on that money. But if a wise guy came in and bet the same amount of money, they would move the line. So you're playing to faces. Now, the wise guys, I hate to say aren't as influential, but because there's so many different outs now, so many different places to make a legal wager, they'd have to spread out their money multiple of times, more than they probably would want to, because there's so many different places to play that they can't move the line as quickly as they once did. They were actually manipulating the line for their benefit, using the public's bias for home teams or betting the over. We know this is the way the public bets, and they would use that in manipulating the line to get the best of it, and then betting against the public, which they still do now, and a lot of people do, to get their best number that they can play on. But casual bettors make up so much of the volume of betting that we have. Wise guys are very important to the bookmaker. They're the ones who will move the line, and that's where the bookmakers want to get. They want to get to that certain level, so they'll have both sides represented in the value.
Okay, now let's talk about the role of sports handicappers. These are guys that are basically predicting who's going to cover the spread. You guys set the spread, and then they tell people who they think is going to cover, and they'll sell their picks to people and pay them for their inside information. And a lot of it is, a little bit kind of scammy as far as how it's promoted, but some sports handicappers are legit, I guess. One in particular I want to ask you about is a guy called Dr. Bob. And I'll never forget a Wall Street Journal article about Dr. Bob. And if I recall the article correctly, this is about 10 years ago, it was basically saying that this guy is a Berkeley statistician and so on. And effectively, he was seeing the opening lines that you guys were setting. And based on his formulations, he could tell which ones were off and so on. And he would put his bettors on that particular side, and that he was so successful that the sports books started listening to him or watching what he was putting out there and changing lines based on what he was putting out there. That's what I recall the article saying. Tell me if that's a true story.
I'm totally unaware of him having any influence on the betting markets. If he was successful, he betted himself. By the money he made was selling the picks rather than betting the picks. Because if you're so successful, why would you tell anybody the best? Your advantage, the line that he thought was the better line, he wouldn't get if he was telling the public. They would be vanished. It would be moving the line, and he wouldn't have value anymore. Not that look, we love touts. In Vegas, we love touts. They're bringing a lot of people into the fray, bringing a lot of money into the industry. And it's an industry that's been around forever. As I told you before we started, I got my career started with Jim Feist. And I can honestly say when we gave out picks, it was one side, good or bad. He had his good days, had his bad days, but he was legit. And I'm not saying anybody isn't legit. But if you're a person who doesn't have time to handicap and you want somebody's expert advice, I think you can do just as well by flipping a coin. You'll be around 50%, and that's what the bookmakers want. And I think you'd be most happy with that. The touts again if they're legitimate and somebody likes the time they'll save with the play, then use a tout. But you're spending money above and beyond what you need to. So. It's an industry I never really got into, but never paid attention. We've never had a tout. I'm going to retract a little bit. There was a guy in Wisconsin who had his big plays in football. Everybody followed him. Apparently, he had 20 years in a row, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name. I wish I could. I think the old blood in Vegas would remember him, but he is from Wisconsin, and he had some influence when the stories broke out. He had this 20-year in a row prediction of a game, but as soon as he got to the public, within a few years, he wasn't hitting the same at the same rate. But certainly, people have their opinions, and that's what the line is. It's an opinion. We are looking at data, team performance, injuries, just like everybody else. But ultimately, it's an opinion, that the line is. Again, it's not rocket science. You'd be amazed at the team of 6 people that I had, how we come up with the line sometimes. It's very, just shoot around the room. 4, 6, 3.5, 2, 5, 4.5. That's the line. Basically, sometimes that is how we come up with the line. We're all in the ballpark. Let's stick it in the middle and see where it goes. And I know in today's industry, there's people that use companies that say they use algorithms and they use all sorts of computerized systems. I think it's a lot of BS. I think it's bullshit. I've never used algorithms, and I had a successful 34-year career in odds making. Didn't need to do it. It's the same sports, same information. You don't need that. I see a lot of bad lines during the very popular in-game wagering. I don't believe the bookmakers are watching the game. They strictly have a formula of what the score is, at what time it is, and how much time's remaining, and they create a line. But if they're not watching, if they're not seeing a major player is injured or during the game or has foul trouble, we know that they'll return, or they don't know the rotations. I see a clear advantage for gamblers, particularly with in-game wagering. However, in-game wagering doesn't offer the gambler-friendly odds. There's big margins you have to overcome. You're not getting a nickel line or a dime line. You're facing 30, 40, 50-cent lines, meaning if you bet the favorite and someone bets the underdog, there's a clear gap, a huge gap where the bookmaker can make money. And that's where I think the bookmaker equals out the poor lines that they do have during in-game. I think it can get better, but I don't believe in all the algorithms thing. And I'm not trying to be old school here. I see it myself. I have an account with a major bookmaking firm that's across the United States, and I just see bad lines on the in-game. I think there are lots of great odds makers around the world on the United States sports scene. I think they do a great job, but I think the in-game is where it's a little bit weak still.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we got to take a break, and after the break, we're going to try and get a couple of tips from an odds maker, from sports bettors out there, as to how to take advantage of some lines that may be off. We'll cover that after the break. We're talking to Pete Korner.
I want you to smash that like button.
Hi everyone, I'm Veronica Dudo, and welcome to Buy,
Hold, Sell. If you have the Russians that are going into Ukraine, the Americans and the Germans and everyone else in Europe is going to say, hell no.
If Russia doing things, logically was their MO, I'd agree with you. Yeah, Todd, why don't you get him on a phone call right now? Hello.
Financial News TV, just the way you like it. Fast-paced, unadulterated, in-your-face, rock and roll style. Join us next time on Buy, Hold, Sell Live.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to remember all that. I can't even remember.
Oh, God.
Yeah, well, that doesn't. I want you to, oh, my God. Fast-paced, no, oh, sorry.
Take one.
Fast-paced, no holds barred, in-your-face, rock and roll style.
Woohoo!
Good sign.
Let's kick some
And welcome back. We are talking to Pete Korner. He is the Mr. Oddsmaker from Vegas for an extended period of time, providing all of the lines to the Las Vegas casinos. Now in semi-retirement in Portland, but fun to talk to get the insight as to how these lines are set to begin with, and therefore what opportunities there may be for bettors. So along those lines, it seems to me, in my experience, it seems like there's 2 times when lines tend to move primarily. One is when you initially set that line, because immediately now you're getting the bets on both sides, which could cause the casino to adjust it. And then I've noticed lines moving right before the start of the game. And I'm wondering if you see that also, yeah, it's pretty common that within 10 to 15 minutes of the start of the game, you'll see another line movement.
Yeah, James, I think you hit that right on the nose. We do see a sudden movement at the beginning where we had a different opinion than some of the wise guys bettors. And then most of the action after that is on game day and right before the game starts, because that's where the most information is being revealed, especially on TV now. They have updates on injuries. It's very important. And I think that sways a lot of money, and it is put at the very end of the betting portion of an event. One of the things, I think, if there is a time where the line is weakest, is at the beginning of every season, when no matter what the sports season, the first 5-10 games, we don't have much information. We don't have much information to go on. We usually use the previous years and kind of move it forward. If we saw a lot of player movement on a particular sport, we could adjust. But I think the gamblers, and as I noted, as a talk that I had with you before, is we are very receptive in knowing that there are gamblers that know more than we do as odds makers. They're good, and they're very good at betting, and they will win. No doubt about it. So we can't worry too much. It's such a small percentage of the betting market. However, we do cater to the masses, but they do their best at the beginning of the year when their opinions could be better than ours. Once the season starts and there's more data that they're looking at and then we're looking at, and we're all looking at that same data, those lines kind of come together. I think there's a different dynamic when playoffs start. I think there's an intensity that is very different than what you saw during the regular season. And I think that could play towards the players who can create an edge if they see something. But as odds makers, we're trying to get the most information like the gamblers do. We, in the day, back in the 80s and 90s, we didn't have updated injury reports, which are so important for us. Injuries are huge. I can't watch every football game. I certainly can't watch every basketball game when it comes to college, per se. There's just too many. What I like to do is kind of check in every game that I can just to see the flow and make sure there's no injuries, and then scour the papers and the stories the next day online now. But we get these injuries quick. If we find out LeBron James is out suddenly, it's out within 30 seconds to a minute. So if somebody has an edge, they can make a play, but it'll quickly be adjusted. So the players don't have that window of opportunity when it comes to that type of major movement. But getting back to the original point, at the beginning of a line, when it comes out, you will see that kind of movement. And at the end of the betting process, near the end, when there's all the information is, those big boys who put down some big money, they're going to put it at the end of the game where the line doesn't have a chance to move or does move quickly at the very end before the game starts.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen a trend that whatever direction it moves right before the start of the game tends to be an accurate projection. So in other words, if a team went from -8 to -8.5, all of a sudden right at the end, that is a pretty good bet to go ahead and lay the 8.5. Is that
if you trust that, sure. But it's true though. If they're moving the line at the very end, that usually means there's some big money coming down, and that's not usually from the casual bettors. That's usually from their bigger bettors that have their opinion, and they don't want to be behind the line movement. So that is a tell, but also when it comes to the major games like a Super Bowl or, as I mentioned before, a championship game where there's huge money, not many games going on at the same time, the betting public, their money overcomes the wise guy. And that's where you probably want to go against that kind of movement. That's kind of the standard saying, bet against the public. So those big games where there's, we have 2 championship games on a day, that's it. the betting public overwhelms the wise guy money, and you'll know which way the betting public's going, and you may want to go against that. I'm not trying to support that theory, but that's what people believe.
Makes sense. So who are these wise guys? Are there actually people out there that are genuinely making a living sports betting?
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not sure how the process is. In the past 6 years since the proliferation of sports gaming has gone across the United States, how it's gone worldwide now, it's a different beast. When we had the big time bettors in Vegas betting, they had crews of people at every casino, and when they were told to make the play, they all went at the same time to the windows. You don't have that. You have betting apps now. One person can have 8 phones in front of them and make all the plays all at once, depending on the limits for each one. But the betting groups, I'm not sure what the process is anymore. It's high tech now. It's faster. I think it's more difficult to book certain sports now because of the lightning fast way money can come down through these apps. I think they're wonderful. I think the betting apps are just terrific. And it offers, the bookmakers are able to offer so many more bets, because online you don't have space in the casino. In the casino, the sports book, you can only put the bets up that you could put on the boards, so you're restricted. So here on the betting apps, you can put a ton of wagers for the betting public, and it's very tough to monitor each and every one. Before I left Las Vegas, I was working at William Hill Corporate before their takeover by Caesar's Palace, and I was the nighttime guy, and I ran the reports every night for 9, 10, 12 states, whatever it was, and constantly monitoring every bet that came across our screens. And it's tough, and it's very tough because people are working in teams. They're working in different states trying to get the same bets, and very tough to monitor. And if you're persistent, it's a grind. If you're going to make sports wagering a living, it's not easy. It's a lot of work, a lot of research. I know as an odds maker, we didn't have a day off. I worked my own company 15 years. We never had a day off. Some days were lighter than others, but with the sports happening every day, and if you're a sports enthusiast who wants to bet it, you have to know what's going on. I've always told people the best way to bet on sports is to play the fantasy leagues. If you're play a fantasy league, I know it's kind of corny, but you're aware of sports injuries. You're aware of other things happening, and it can only help you in your sports wagering. So there are clear areas where bettors can carve a niche out and have a betting edge over the odds maker and the book.
Yeah. In sports betting, you're playing primarily against other players, and so there's a skill factor there where you can beat the other players as opposed to simply playing against the house. So if you're
doing the sports exchange, if you're doing exchange wagering, which I happen to have, I love sports exchanges. They're coming now onto the market. I myself have a sports exchange product I'm trying to peddle for many years now. It's just tough to get the old school bookmakers to accept it. But playing against the players, even a bigger benefit for the wise guy. If you can get the lines you want, then you're always going to be that percentage better than you were. So betting exchanges offer the gamblers a unique look at better lines, less juice, and it just gives them another out to arbitrage if they want to do that, work on both sides and win no matter what. So there's lots of that kind of thing now happening, which I think is just fantastic. I just think it's a great improvement on the industry.
Yeah, well, well, let's get into that. So tell us what that would look like if we're talking about your product and I want to make an online sports bet. Normally I go to the game and it's Lakers versus Celtics and it's Lakers -6.5. And I could take the Lakers 110 to win 100, -6.5, or Boston plus 6.5, 110 to win 100. How does it look different on what you're pushing?
Yeah, well, with an exchange, we would, my particular app, we will put out a line that's similar to what's out there. That'll be our opening line. It's up to the bettors now to make an offer or accept an offer that they personally like. So if the line is the Celtics -6.5, well, I don't want -6.5. I want -6, or I want -5.5. So what they do is they generate an offer on the app, they post it, and we let it out there. And if somebody says, heck with it, it's for $10,000, let's say, I'm going extreme here. I want to get $10,000 down. I don't care about that extra half point or point off. I want to get the money down, and I want to lay 102 instead of 110. Well, you're saving yourself a lot. The difference between a line at -102 and a line at -110, if you're a casual bettor and you win half the time and lose half the time, and all you do is lose the juice, it's a difference of having to put another deposit in after 3 weeks or putting another deposit in after 3 months. So that difference in juice is huge. And I think the psychology of wagering, particularly on sports, particularly any sporting game, is you want players to play. And giving them an opportunity to keep playing keeps money in the system. If you constantly take their money by having sports lines, 50-cent lines, that are unfair to the gamblers, one, you're not going to get the volume, and two, people are going to run out of money quicker. You want them to keep betting and have some sort of sense that they're getting the best of the line. So the exchange offers that to the players. For the bookmaker, there's no risk. They're going to get juice no matter what. It's two-way action every time. So the casino wins. Each side of the wager are happy with the offers. One offered it, one took it. They're happy. Everybody's happy. It's a win-win situation, except somebody has to lose on the offer and the take. But I think the wave of the future is exchange wagering. Betfair, based out of England, is a huge model. However, the interesting thing is, still in Nevada, where I'm from, is the problem with exchange wagering in Nevada, and I'm not sure about every other state, certainly not New Jersey that we're finding out, is somebody can make an offer. There's nothing illegal about making an offer. If you made an offer, Celtics -6, and I want to take the other side +6, if I'm taking your offer, I'm booking the action, technically, and I don't have a license to book action. That's the caveat of why it's not legal everywhere. My particular app finds a loophole in that, a legal loophole, and I know it's accepted by the Nevada Gaming Control Board. I just haven't been able to get a casino to sponsor it. However, exchange wagering is, I think, the wave of the future, and can help a sports book if they carry both. They could lay off if they need to. If they have too much action, they could lay it off on the exchange and get the best of everything, get the best of both worlds. So I think as a gambler, you have a lot of outs, a lot of opportunities to get the best of the line, and you don't have to hang with -110 anymore, certainly with the exchanges.
Well, one of the beauties also is you mentioned the celebrity volleyball game. You have no problem offering the celebrity volleyball game because the house doesn't have to worry about it. It's two players playing against each other. So you could bet on just about anything.
That's exactly right. You hit it right on the nose, James. With exchange wagering, if somebody comes up, even if they say, hey, there's a UFC fight coming up, and we don't know the fighters. Let's say there's just two guys who just getting into UFC. We could just put the two out there. Let the players establish the line. And I've told that to many of the directors at the sports book. This is an advantage of attaching an exchange to your traditional sports book. We could put out the line, we could put out the games before you post them and see where the gamblers are putting the line and using that information to put out into their traditional sports book. I said there's a tremendous value with that, but the safety of it for bookmakers is what I think is the biggest draw for them. The value.
So how does the house make money on it then?
Well, instead of minus 110, your players are betting minus 102. So you're going to get smaller juice, but you're always going to win.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you're still generating juice, just at a lower level.
Mm-hmm. Or you could simply just say, hey, we take 1% of all wagers or all transactions.
Yeah. And there's many different innovative ways with exchange wagering. There is a couple places that I know that do take, we'll just take 1%. And that's a coup for the bettors. Absolutely. The problem or the issues right now with exchange wagering is what they call liquidity. Not many people are into it just yet, but not many people were into in-game wagering, and now it's very popular. I think there's an education process for anything new, and that includes exchange wagering. So people that will find out about it will learn about it, and the people booking that sort of format will learn about it and be able to utilize another way of booking, which is 100% profit. You never lose.
So well, let's just wrap up with, tell us what the state is of odds making today. You're no longer in the business. How has it changed? Is there just one company out there that's doing it, or are there lots of them out there? What's the state of odds making today?
Certainly not the mom and pop shop that I had and were other traditional places that set the odds in yesteryear. We have huge companies like Sport Radar that'll offer a million different offerings. They're very good at what they do. That company basically bumped me out of Nevada. I just couldn't, there's 200 wagers per game. I just don't have the time or the staff, which they did. I was, however, like I said, I'm pursuing this exchange wagering, so I was on my way out. And there's so many other states that have sports wagering. I don't need to hang in Nevada. But the state of odds making is now a huge consulting consortium with lots of people engaging in the process to make sure that your sports book has as many opportunities, if not more, than your competitors. And that's what they're doing. I think it takes away some of the profit because, like I said, monitoring, particularly the very real esoteric props and things in sports, very tough. But that's the competitive issue now with odds making, is to get as much out for your customers so they can bet.
Are some of the sports books actually doing it in-house? They've got their own odds makers to set the lines?
Yeah, I have good friends at what used to be the Hilton Kingdom, for the name of whoever they are now. Guys who set the odds. They used to be in the Imperial Palace. These guys are wonderful odds makers, and they're in-house. I've had a couple groups up in Reno when I was there. They were tremendous odds makers, and they produce for their own house. It's expensive if you do join these particular companies, but if you have an app with your sports book, you'll need to have odds makers to know what lines are good and what's bad. So it's good to have these types of people in staff within your group.
All right. Well, that was fascinating. My first ever discussion with a true odds maker. I got a zillion more questions, but we got to wrap up. But I think we left everybody with a few tips as to perhaps give you a little edge against your book. So Pete Korner, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Have a great one.
I want you to smash that like button.